understand. You said genetic intervention. I've heard this from many, many people, Zachariah Sitchin and forward.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this genetic intervention early on, was this what took the early caveman, the early, at some stage, to the modern intelligent human being that we now know? Is that the change for all of humanity, and were there special changes in certain human beings then?
It's a very interesting question, and I don't think we can be definite on that, going that far back. When you look at the Sumerian text, they do remarkably describe what we would call test tube babies, creation of humans through test tubes and what have you, which, given that they were found in the middle of the last century and were buried something like 2000 BC, was absolutely astonishing, as many other things in the text are, particularly about astronomy and the planets and the solar system, which have only been confirmed in relatively very recent times. But in terms of the time scale and the scale of the intervention in terms of its effect on the human race in general, I'm still kind of open-minded about that. What is
But I mean, the implications of what you're saying are that there was more than one intervention, or that...
That's the point.
Yeah.
That's the point. For me, there's been more than one intervention at different times. I think that if you go back and you look at the estimates that people like Sitchin put on it, that this Anunnaki arrived maybe around 450,000 years ago, I wouldn't dismiss or argue with that. I think that's not a bad time scale when this thing possibly started. But another thing that I've looked at in my books, and particularly in great detail in this next one, is that the evidence for not just one major cataclysm on this earth, but a number in the window of 13,000 years ago and much more recently. The evidence is phenomenal, not just in the geological and biological record, but also in the endless records and accounts and oral traditions all over the world in all the different cultures. And I think that one of the key areas, the key times for the intervention that created these particular, what I will call royal bloodlines, because interestingly, the Sumerian texts talk about the fact that the Anunnaki created what they called Anuship, kingship. In other words, almost a middleman group of bloodlines that were the middle controllers between the extraterrestrials and the mass of the human race.
All right, then may we think of ourselves as an ant colony? In other words, there are worker ants. There are various levels of ants to the queen. And isn't that kind of what you're saying was done to the human race? They created a genetic strain of workers, which Sitchin believes.
Mm-hmm.
He believes, I think, to mine gold.
Yeah,
I
have many questions about that area, I must say. But I take your point, and it's not a bad summary. What I feel is, however, is this, and this is the positive side that we've really got to get our heads around across this millennium. The human race is not ordinary, and it's not powerless. But if you are a relative handful of people, and you want to control a mass of the people,
yes,
you cannot do it physically. This manipulation is not physical. There's not enough people. If you try to control a herd of sheep physically, you need 4 or 5 guys, maybe more, chasing each sheep.
You bet.
But it's not done like that with a herd or a flock of sheep. Most of them follow the one in front without question. And the others, the stragglers that don't immediately conform to that bar mentality, they are given the dose of the 4-letter word that controls this world, fear, through the sheepdog, and then most of them, if not all of them, come into line. So what we're looking at is a mental and emotional manipulation that has bombarded, and the creation of religions, the major religions and others, has been fundamental in this. And again, look where all the major religions came out of, this same area of the world. Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, out of the Caucasus Mountains, I talked about earlier, Islam, all these major religions came from this same area of the world that this initial operation appears to have taken place in. And what I feel is that the key intervention was after the last cataclysm. It's interesting that when you look at the evidence of where agriculture started in the known world, it was at heights above 10,000 feet, which absolutely fits with the fact that there was some kind of massive flood or flow of water. In those mountains that I'm talking about, that area of the Middle and particularly the Near East, that mountainous area, the Caucasus, what we call Turkey, Iran, all that area.
Yes.
That's, for me, on the evidence that I put in some considerable detail in this next book, where this key intervention took place that created these particular bloodlines. When the waters then started to recede down from these mountains into the valleys of, and the plains of Sumer, Babylon, Egypt, came these people. Now, there were two levels of knowledge. There was the advanced knowledge, which the extraterrestrials and their hybrids had access to, and there was the rest of the people. And what happened, it seems, when you talk to many researchers into this area, is that the mystery schools were set up, some of them very positive, to pass on some advanced information to people they considered were worthy and would use it positively. But as the years passed, this mystery school network was infiltrated, and indeed a negative mirror of it was created. And therefore, instead of passing on this advanced information, which was clearly available, I mean, look at the pyramids. Look at some of the great structures of the ancient world. The one at Baalbek in the Lebanon, which involved moving 3 chunks of stone, each of which were 800 tons, at least a third of a mile, and putting them high up in a wall. I mean, our primitive people are going to do that. So we only got to look at what the ancient world has left us around the planet to see that there was a very advanced knowledge there. You look at the way that the ancient structures and the stone circles are phenomenally connected to star systems, to natural cycles, to the precession of the equinoxes. There was advanced knowledge in the ancient world. What happened is that this was sucked in as the years passed into this mystery school and later secret society network, and was passed on at the highest level only to those
David?
that were given or were chosen to have it.
David, was this a physical science or a mental science?
I think it was absolutely both. You know, some of the information that's now coming to light in shows like yours and others, where we're seeing the true nature of what is possible beyond what we call science, which is actually not science at all, most of it. It's not about open-minded research. It's about defending a belief system and a dogma. And this stuff that's now emerging actually is re-emerging into the public domain at this tremendous time of transformation that's happening now and is going to advance very much across the millennium and into the first 10 years or so of the next century.
Are you aware of an organization called PsyCop?
Yeah.
Yeah. The Skeptical Inquirer?
Well, I've actually talked about them. It's quite interesting in this next book, The Biggest Secret.
Oh, have you really?
Yes, it is amazing how they cross-reference a number of their personnel with mind control operations. If anyone wants to read about that, then it'll be available, and the names will be named in the new year.
No kidding.
It's very interesting how you've got an organization which is suppressing and trying to get people not to look at information and dismiss it, are also involved in some other areas that, to say the least, are extremely questionable. Well, and I reveal some of the background to this organization in my next book, and people ought to know that before they go the way of dismissing information just because it's being ridiculed by these people.
This coming Friday, they're giving me in Los Angeles this special honor they call the Snuffed Candle Award. They say they're giving it to Art Bell. The less than prestigious award, the Snuffed Candle Award, for encouraging credulity, presenting pseudoscience as genuine, and contributing to the public's lack of understanding of the methods of scientific inquiry.
Right. Well, I tell you what, I wouldn't buy a used car or a new one off any of them, and people will see why when they read the next book. I think anyone who gets an honor from this group of that kind should actually take it as an honor, because there are some people, when they're on your side, you know you're on the wrong one. And Psychops is certainly one of them.
No, I'm accepting it in that spirit.
Yeah, and I don't blame you. So the pressure